Planning your first overland trip can feel intimidating. You imagine complicated maps, giant spreadsheets, military-grade logistics, and at least one friend who insists you need $20,000 worth of gear before you even leave your driveway. But here's the truth. Planning your first overland adventure is actually ridiculously simple. And you can plan your first trip in less than 30 minutes. No complicated systems, no expedition level planning. Just a simple process that can help you turn maybe someday into let's do it this weekend. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I plan every single overland trip. Whether you're driving out for a quick weekend camp or heading out on a multi-day expedition across mountains, deserts, and forgotten backroads. This simple method works every time. So grab a coffee and a map and let's plan your first overland trip. Before we start planning, let's quickly answer a question. What exactly is overlanding? Because if you spend 5 minutes on the internet, you'll find people who think overlanding requires a heavily modified vehicle, a rooftop tent that unfolds into a small apartment, 6 fuel cans, a satellite dish, and possibly a professional navigator riding shotgun. But in reality, overlanding is much simpler. Overlanding is simply driving somewhere remote, setting up camp, being self-sufficient, and spending time in nature. That's it. No rules, no special vehicles required. If your vehicle can drive down a dirt road, you're already halfway there. And to plan an overland trip, you really only need 3 things: a vehicle, a destination, and a plan. The problem is, most beginners overcomplicate the planning. So instead, I use a very simple 5-step system that works for almost any trip. Weekend trips, convoy trips, multi-day expeditions. And once you understand it, planning your next adventure becomes incredibly easy. Every great overland trip begins with one thing: a destination. Now, this doesn't have to be a famous national park or a legendary trail. In fact, some of the best overland campsites are places almost nobody ever talks about. So instead of asking, where should I drive? Ask yourself something better. What kind of experience do I want? Do you want to wake up in the mountains? Camp next to a river? Watch the sunset over a desert? Or spend the night deep inside a forest? Once you choose the environment, finding a destination becomes much easier. But here's the trick. Don't just choose a general area. Choose one specific campsite or location. A lake, a viewpoint, a river crossing. Because once you know exactly where you're going, planning the rest of the trip becomes incredibly simple. Now comes the fun part, figuring how to get there. Most people open their navigation system and take the fastest highway. But overlanding is not about the fastest route. It's about the most interesting one. The road less traveled. The dirt road that winds through the mountains. That forgotten trail that connects 2 valleys. This is where overlanding becomes an adventure. I usually use 3 simple tools: Google Maps, satellite imagery, and a couple of trail apps. These help you find routes that are not just shorter, but more scenic and far more interesting. Sometimes the best campsites are found along the way, not at the destination. And that's the beauty of overlanding. The journey is the destination. Before heading out, there's one thing you absolutely must do: check conditions. Because a trail that's easy today can become completely impossible tomorrow. Rain can turn dirt roads into mud. Fog can reduce visibility. And in the mountains, weather can change faster than you can finish saying overland therapy. So before any trip, check 3 simple things. Check the weather, the road or trail conditions, and daylight hours. These 3 checks prevent about 90% of beginner problems. It only takes a few minutes, but it can save you from a very long and uncomfortable night. One of the best parts of overlanding has to be camp cooking. There's something magical about cooking a meal outdoors after a long drive. But this also means planning food and water properly. For a simple weekend trip, this is easy. Bring food for 2 days, throw in some snacks, grab your favorite coffee and plenty of water. But here's a rule every experienced overlander follows: bring more water than you actually think you need, because water disappears quickly. Cooking, cleaning, drinking, and the occasional moment when you spill half of it while trying to look cool on camera. Yes, it does happen. The final step is simple, but incredibly important. Before leaving, tell someone where you're going, the rough route you might take, and when you'll be back. It takes about 30 seconds and a text message. But if something unexpected happens, this information can be extremely valuable. Overlanding is about adventure, but it's also about being responsible while exploring remote places. A little planning can go a long way. Now, let's put this system into practice. Let's say you want to plan a weekend overland trip. These are honestly some of the best trips for beginners. You leave on a Saturday morning, drive a few hours, find a campsite, spend the night under the stars, and return on Sunday feeling like a new person. Simple. For these trips, planning is very light. Here's what I usually bring: shelter and sleeping system, food for 2 days, water, basic recovery gear, and warm and dry clothing. That's it. You don't need a complicated setup to enjoy nature. In fact, some of my favorite overland trips were the simplest ones. Just a vehicle, a quiet campsite, and the sound of wind moving through the trees. Longer trips are where planning becomes a little more important. Let's say you're heading out for 5 to 10 days. Now, you start thinking about things like fuel range, food resupply, multiple campsites, and vehicle maintenance. Instead of one destination, you plan several checkpoints along your route. Think of it like this: a long expedition is simply many small trips connected together. Each day you drive somewhere new, explore the terrain, find a campsite, wake up the next morning, and continue the journey. On trips like this, flexibility is key, because the best overland adventures never go perfectly as planned. Sometimes you discover a trail that isn't on the map. Sometimes you find a campsite that's too beautiful to leave. And sometimes the road simply ends and the adventure truly begins. Before you plan your first trip, let me save you from 3 classic beginner mistakes. Packing too much gear. Most of it will just stay in the vehicle or get in the way. Driving too far. Overlanding is not really about covering distance. It's about enjoying the journey. Overplanning. Always leave room for curiosity. Some of the best trails and viewpoints I've ever found weren't planned at all. They were just something we stumbled upon by accident. Here's the truth about overlanding. The hardest part isn't the driving, or the camping, or even the planning. The hardest part is simply deciding to go. So if you've been thinking about your first overland trip, take this as your sign. Pick a destination, plan a route, pack your gear, and start driving. Because some of the best therapy happens far away from cell service. We'll see you on the road, or off it.